Hello everybody, and welcome to our talk about security, better safe than sorry. This year, with us on stage, if I manage to take the clipper and go to the next slide, we have CCP Random with us, we have CCP Grimmi, and CCP Peligro, and I'm CCP Bugartist, Director of Information Security with CCP. As you can see on this slide, we have another section on there to the right part, which is internal affairs, because recently, early January, we made the decision to also integrate internal affairs into CCP security. And this is mainly because we can leverage a lot of our detection and detection efforts and our tooling efforts for both of the different, let's say, domains in security. CCP Arkanon, who is running the internal affairs department as a manager, is not with us on stage today, but he will be in the roundtable later on. Just to have a brief look on what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about security at CCP in general. There will be a very brief introduction how security looks like at the moment in CCP. Then we're going to talk about input multiplexing and broadcasting, because I guess it's a very hot topic and a lot of you might be interested in that. Then we will have a team security update like we do every year with a lot of numbers and information about bans, why we ban people, how we do it, where we do it, and whom we actually ban. And of course, real money trading, RMT, which is a hot topic every year. Then there is a secret part. I'm not going to say anything about that yet, but you will see what it is all about. And at the very end, which is a very important topic, and that's why we put it at the end, so that this is what you will keep in mind once you leave this room, security awareness. Yeah, the roundtable, which is directly after this talk, will also be our Q&A session. So I expect, as we have a lot of content to deliver in this presentation, that we might not have time at the end for any questions, which means that I encourage you to join us in the roundtable afterwards. It's in Dixie, just downstairs. For questions and answers afterwards. So what is it, security at CCP? What are we doing, how are we doing it, and especially why are we doing it? The what is, at CCP, we have security divided into 3 domains. One domain is team security, which takes care of everything game-related, product-related, in-game security-related. Then we have the domain InfoSec, or information security, which is handling everything which is in regards to the infrastructure, to security development, supporting internal departments with security-related matters. And as I just mentioned, since earlier this year, we also have internal affairs in there as another domain in CCP security, taking care of monitoring behavior and activity of dev accounts, of employees, so that everything stays in line with our CCP Bible. I guess that's something you guys have heard about already, that we have an internal Bible on how, or which describes on how our employees should behave in the game when they use our tools and when they use and make use of their dev accounts. For this presentation, because I said I will not only talk about the what, but I will also talk about how and why. And as security is a very, very big field, a very broad field with a lot of different areas and topics. As you can see on this slide, this is mainly the different aspects and elements on how security is structured. And for this presentation, I will just limit it to detection. So that means the next example on how we do it will be based on the detection silo of information security. In order to do detection of any security-related incidents or security-related events, we are utilizing all kinds of information. So like for classical information security, we of course base our analysis on a lot of log files, on behavior in the network. We use IDS systems. We use, of course, the logs from network devices, from operating systems, from applications. We correlate all this information and we analyze it with different rules and technologies, and we use, of course, also intelligence feeds from the internet in order to correlate it. But not only that, we also use information from within our games and products, like event logs of EVE Online, where we can see everything you guys do, like you warp to an object, or you orbit something, or you shoot at something, or you just warp scramble somebody. For everything you do, there is an event log entry in there. And as you heard in the last few days already, especially from CCP Quant when he said, okay, we have more than 50 gigabyte of log data per day, which is just generated in EVE Online. And that is all the information we use and we correlate. And as I said, we also, and that's pretty new that we do that, we correlate the infrastructure security logs together with EVE events. And this allows us to also detect things like, okay, somebody signed up to a new account and, oh, wait a second, the same IP address is being used to do a security or vulnerability scan on the account management website. So we correlate this information, and we also, and you should be aware of that, if you scan from the same IP like you play EVE from, we will tag you because your account, your EVE account, because we of course we are not very happy seeing you trying to do SQL injection or similar things on our websites, and that's why we keep track of it, and we will put this information as a tag, as information onto your EVE account as well. We generate alerts and trends, and we use all of this information to, of course, improve our collection, detection, correlation and detection capabilities. Why are we doing it? This is actually very obvious. We are doing that because we are here and we want to be here to be able to allow you to play the game, to be able to keep the game up and running, to protect your personal information, to protect your accounts, your virtual assets, and to do everything so that you have a safe and a funny journey through New Eden. And one example for that is account security. We invested quite some time, had a lot of thoughts about how we can improve account security. And just in case you missed the keynote of CCP Siegel on Thursday in the afternoon, here it is again. We will get multi-factor authentication in April for EVE Online, which will start off with Google Authenticator capabilities as well as codes, which you, similar to other platforms you already know, like you log in and or you want to log in and then you get a code sent via email and you enter it into a field, it's validated and then you can log in. That's it for the introduction and for a brief wrap-up of security at CCP. I will now hand over to CCP Random, who's going to tell us something about multiplexing and broadcasting in EVE Online.
Yes, thank you. All right, can you hear me? Great. So this is one of the controversial topics in our forums, and I think I counted it 2 days ago. It's like 3,800 replies to the notice that we have sent out recently. And one of the commonality above all these replies is that we are missing a definition, what input multiplexing is and what multiboxing is. So at first, I would like to summarize this and to make sure that we are on the same page in regards to the terms. We have an input device, and we send one input to one EVE client, and that's unmodified, so it's played as it is shipped. And then you have another input sent to another EVE client. And if you do that, the input is manual, the input is sequential, and the input is from a human. And every single input is made by a human hand, using a human mouse or using a human keyboard or whatever human interface device you are working with. And that limits the interaction speed to some kind of a sports competition. So you're doing it with your own hands. You're playing against somebody who uses his own hands to play EVE. It's like a hand-to-hand combat situation if you look at it from that perspective. And the competition is based on the same preference everywhere. So it brings team play in the foreground and not so much the technology. So it's mostly about playing EVE and not enjoying it with a specific technology that is from a third-party vendor or somehow injected into the client. It's unmodified and played as it is shipped. If you're looking at input broadcasting and input multiplexing, the situation is a little different. You send the input, you push it to some kind of third-party software or third-party hardware or third-party approach in general. You push it to the EVE client, you impact the EVE universe, symbolized by these red ships, which are glowing in an evil red. And you see that the client is in background, in foreground. It doesn't really matter what you do to the client because the software will do it for you. And that way, your input hits the EVE universe and impacts it. And when we did the announcement, we had a certain set of actions that are allowed and a certain set of actions which are not allowed. So if you look at it, what is prohibited, for example, is you're not allowed to use any input multiplexing or input broadcasting to activate ship modules, to navigate within the EVE universe, to move your assets, or to interact with other characters. And what is allowed is that you are able to synchronize your settings and that you can perform window management actions and the login process. So that's mostly comfort functions on the one hand and gameplay functions on the other hand. So anything, and that's the red line that is throughout the notice that we have sent out, anything that impacts the EVE universe is not allowed. And that is agnostic to the software approach, to the hardware approach, or whatever you use. So if there is something new that comes up tomorrow that will let you play Eve faster or better, pay attention to what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do in regards to this. And interestingly enough, we also see that client modifications get shipped with certain third-party software. And these client modifications actually bring you into a totally different policy if you look at it. So you will hear about that later. And yeah, that's an upcoming part. So the frequently asked questions and frequently used answers. So I said we had a forum thread, 3,800 replies in no time. I would like to speak about the highlights quickly. And there was often one question, and a very popular player posted a video about it, if he is allowed to roll over, or if he is allowed to inject anything into the Eve client that allows him to add a certain set of controls for a rollover effect, that he controls multiple clients with a rollover interface. Other questions are, is round-robin input multiplexing allowed, where you delay the input in a manner so that you just send it to the one client and a little later to the next, and so on and so on. And another question is if these overlays can be 1 pixel wide so that they really don't affect the client, or that they are very small and very unimportant. And interestingly enough, the answer to that is now a EULA. So it's pretty general, though, the answer, but it's like that. You are not allowed to change how the game is played. So you may not use your own third-party software to modify any content appearing within the game environment. And regardless of how you look at it, even if the interface is 0 pixels, it's still not allowed because it changes how the game is played. And that is an important aspect on how we look at this, because we didn't need to change our EULAs or anything. It has always been there. Now, other questions are a little simpler, because people also ask if this affects community tools in any way that use our API. So these are usually the tools you have on your tablets or on your mobile phones, which give you information about Eve. And the answer to that is that API tools in general do not automate any gameplay. So they don't play the game. They grab information, show you some mails or Eve mails or any skill queue stuff. And that is not a problem as long as you're not using it in conjunction with actions that are not allowed. Another question which recently came up was, are you allowed to use touchscreens? So if you play Eve on a nice pad or something and you see that there are certain interface changes because you don't have a mouse anymore attached to this device. And of course, touchscreen devices are not excluded. And if you can play Eve on, let's say, a touchscreen-enabled device, you're totally fine with that. Now, the rules in conjunction with each other are a little complex, and that's why we decided to make a visualization about that. So, of course, and we didn't explicitly mention that in our notice which we sent in the forums, you are not allowed to use botting and you're not allowed to use macroing by any means, even though we just focused on input multiplexing recently. So if you are doing that, you might already be in the statistics that are upcoming in this talk. And the statistics are fairly recent, so it's fairly certain that if you are doing botting last week or 2 weeks ago, that you're already in there. Then you can run multiple clients. It's totally fine with us, and there's no problem with that. But if you choose a third-party way, any way that you have probably created on your own or that is out there and probably popular and posted, pay attention to the rules that we have lined out. So you are allowed to do certain things that are in green, and there are certain things that are not allowed in red. And these are just examples, because Eve itself allows a variety of interactions, and it's a huge game. And it would be impossible to come up with a complete list. But the red line is, if you impact the Eve universe with that third-party approach, just don't do it. If you use it for your own comfort functions, you can do it. And now I want to show you the statistical impact of that, because that has always been asked, and people always wonder if there's just one specialist per alliance who does input multiplexing or uses multiple accounts at the same time to play fast and to play very efficient, or if that is an effect that is very well centered to, let's say, a majority of players. And if you look at this graph, you see that there is a sudden change coming up at the beginning of this year, which was when the notice we sent pointed out that from that day on, we are going to enforce that you should not use input multiplexing for any of the red outlined things I showed you before. What you can also see is that the graph shows a shows that you come to an effect that you see less accounts, and you also see less players, but the steepness of the curves isn't the same. And that is because somebody who does this, who uses input multiplexing, has multiple accounts, but it's just one player. So we map this to the individual player playing EVE, and we look at that from the account perspective and the player perspective. Another thing you are seeing is between the 15th of January and the 2nd of February, there's a sudden rise again. And that is because we got a report that somebody was slipping through our detection means. We are very thankful for the report because it helps us to refine our approaches, which are based on big data. So we use number crunching and we use certain log analysis approaches. And CCP Quant has talked about the fact that we have a lot of data which we can use. And the better we get at identifying patterns, the more we can do to keep this to a limit. And if you want to speak about these limits and look at them, I can hand it over to CCP Grimmi and CCP Peligro now.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Oh.
Hello. Yes. Okay. So hi everyone. We have a lot of slides, so we're just gonna jump right into it.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm Grimmi.
I'm Peligro, and we're Team Security, or Team Needs a Haircut. We have a lot of graphs and a lot of numbers we have to show, and we're going to be moving pretty quick. Same as last year, we're going to publish the slides along with the video. So if we're moving a little fast, don't worry, you'll get your hands on the actual numbers and data as soon as possible.
And there'll be a dev blog at some point, hopefully as soon as possible.
Soon TM. You know it. We're going to talk about bans for a little while, and you're going to see some comparisons of last year's numbers, which we showed, to this year. And of course, since Fanfest was moved up, we have a little bit of a shorter time frame. So you'll see some of the numbers are lower, and we'll try to explain why that is. And this here is the bans you saw last year. A couple of important things to note here. Modified client, 20% of all bans. You can also see the monthly average. And this is the next period. You can see the monthly average has gone down, which we're very pleased with, and we think people are starting to behave a little better, you know.
Yep. The ISK buyers are up a little bit here because of the rule change. It took effect in January, so it went from 5%. What was it?
Let's have a look.
Couple of 4% to 13%.
Yeah. So the policy change was basically from a 4-strike to a 2-strike, and we of course anticipated more bans then on first offense, and the idea is we'll have less repeat offenders. But the policy has only been in place for about 3 months, so the numbers aren't that good so far. So we'll show you more on that later on. You can see the modified client bans here are 2% where they were 20% in the last period, and that's because in 2013 we were experimenting with some client-side detection techniques which are no longer in place. Everything we do is based on internal log analysis, behavior analysis, and we think that's working out really great so far.
The ISK sellers are exactly the same as last time, though, so that's not changing a lot, unfortunately.
It's a constant game of cat and mouse, and you know, as long as there is people willing to pay for ISK, they're going to be around. It's just a fact of the matter. This is the ESTF, stands for the EVE Security Task Force, and that's our automated bot detection and banning system. This runs 24/7, 365, and it's always crunching logs, banning bots. It only accounts for about 10–15% of the total bans. Because EVE is an immensely complex game, we have specific detection code for specific activities. And
especially market bots. Most of that stuff is done by hand. Yeah. So the automatic system doesn't really catch a lot of those.
Pay close attention to those because it's very destructive and ruins a lot of the game for anyone who likes to do station trading and you know, play the market, which is a huge part of the game itself. This is some stats on the source IP of the banned accounts, and you know, don't read too much into this. Yeah. Pretty please.
This is the last year's from last Fanfest, so it's a longer period. And
I mean, Russia and the US here are our biggest markets. It makes sense that they would be there. And again, it's technical information, and it does not represent the nationalities of the actual operators. There's a lot of VPNs and proxies that bog down these numbers. Here's the current period. As you can see, numbers are down a little bit. I'd like to welcome the Danes to this graph.
Completely out of control.
Still men left, and now they're here. Coincidence?
Yes.
Yeah, jättebra.
Jättebra. But we still have the Americans and Russians up there, but it's VPNs, there's a lot of that in there, so it doesn't necessarily reflect on where people are from actually.
I do want to say though that Britain and Germany are also very big markets, and as you can see, they're very well behaved, and we appreciate that. This is the average age of permanently banned accounts, which is something we've been trying to measure because it's part of how we increase the cost of doing business for RMTers and botters. We make it more difficult for them, they get banned faster, they can bot for less periods of time, so they need more accounts to make the same profit. Spike in September here was a stockpile of accounts injected through a promotion we did a couple of years ago that an RMT site had, and they were basically set up to sell ISK in JITA, and when we detected it, we took them all out, so the average age went up. And the next slide, you can see in September here that this is the average skill points on banned accounts. In September, it actually went down, even though the accounts were older. These were pretty much worthless accounts that they only used to launder ISK and actually distribute it, which is why the skill points went down, even though the age went up. Overall, not too much has changed here since last year, and
yeah, we have some pretty big characters on that. 181.
yeah.
Since we made this, we have actually banned one with over 200.
Yeah,
so,
it's a bit of a loss.
Yes, which is not really great. This is the amount of valuables on banned accounts. This is pretty much the same graph as we published during Christmas or just before Christmas. That August spike may or may not be related to gambling things, possibly.
Can't confirm or deny that,
yeah.
but it's some big numbers. This is the ISK and the worth of the assets in ISK. So we're using an in-house version of the average values that you see in game. We like to think our numbers are maybe a little better.
There's possibly too many ISKs in the title, though. ISK in value, ISK.
And we will not double your ISK, contrary to popular belief.
Yeah.
Ship types on banned accounts. The capsules and rookie ships you see here is of course, they use disposable accounts, and somehow there's a belief that you can launder your stuff through enough trial accounts and we won't find it. It's not the case. So capsules and rookie ships are of course on top there. Battleships, close second. Frigates, mining barges, the usual suspects.
Yeah, it's a shorter time period than for the last Fanfest when we had 6 Titans banned. Now it's just 1.
Only 1 this year.
Yeah, so that's. But here's the big ships. There's a Titan over there, and the super carriers and all the big cheeses.
I want to mention here that the Erebus was not botting or anything like that, but we don't limit action to the offending account. So if you're running a bot account, and then you have a bunch of other accounts that you play clean on, those are going to get banned too. We take action to all accounts found to belong to the offender, and since there is no way to transfer assets without leaving a very detailed trail of logs which we can chase down, you can't launder that into your main, so to speak. A lot of people are not aware of this, sadly, so when they have a bot account and they get permabanned on all their accounts, they come and say, hey, I wasn't cheating on this account, please unban. Sorry, buddy, it's not. This is the part of the deterrent, And, we pod you too. I might add that our KDR is perfect.
Yeah. Then we have the mining ships on banned accounts. Last year we had the Venture way up top. Now it's below the Retriever, which is obviously a better ship. So
we're still looking into why this is, but we have some ideas. The Retriever is, of course, a great mining barge, and we've increased the duration of trial accounts, and we've lifted some of the restrictions, and we're still comfortable with that because our big data analytics capabilities have vastly improved. So while trial account abuse is a big problem, we think we have the tools needed to tackle it.
Maybe they're just hiding or trying to hide, because we called out the Ventures last year,
Yeah.
So.
And that ties into the next one here,
Yeah.
the usual suspects.
Not a whole lot of change there. Still the Caldari, although it's got a little better. They were over 50% last year, but it's still the Caldari most used for
And they did make some good beer this year, so thank you for that, Kaldari.
Yes.
Oh, there's an old favorite.
Yes.
You might notice a lack of names here. This is our graph showing band accounts by alliance. This year we're going to do you one better and tell you that the top 3 here are all rental alliances. So I'm sure you can figure it out. I'm very excited to see how this compares next year because of the sub changes. It might change the 0-0 landscape and rental alliances. We'll see how that all plays out. Very interesting nevertheless. A lot of these alliances have been around for ages. Some of them reform and then end up getting all banned again, and it's just a constant ongoing effort.
Yeah, this is our saddest graph.
Yes.
This is the accounts that get caught up in RMT, as in buying ISK, and obviously it's the new players who are most at risk, and this is really not something we would like to see. It's a solar eclipse in our heart for everyone in that graph. This is really something we need to do something about, and we'll get back to that later in this presentation.
Next one, hacked accounts. As you can see here, this is it's a pretty big problem, and we haven't really seen a decrease here in the past year. Not much has changed on the account security front. It'll be really interesting to see how two-factor affects this. The spike in September was a massive brute force attack, which we detected in real time, and action done in real time as well. There were about 90,000 accounts that somebody tried to get into, and they succeeded at logging in about 800-900 of those. But they never managed to log into the game because we caught it, we banned all the accounts, got in touch with the owners, and no damage was done to these accounts because of the rapid response. Thank you very much. It actually worked out as sort of like a mini reactivation campaign, because these were mostly disabled trial accounts from ages ago, and we sent them an email, and if they verified ownership, we gave them some game time and tried to get them back in the game. So
yeah, but it's going to be very interesting to see how the two-factor thing affects this. Hopefully we'll be flatlining completely next year.
We can dream.
Yes.
And this is the shout out to Fox News for this one. It's the percentage of ISK buyers that are represented in the hacked accounts graph. If you buy ISK, you're painting a target on you. You're giving them your email, your name, and all this, and they will gladly try to access your account. It doesn't have to be immediately. It might be a couple of years down the line. Maybe their bots just got banned, and they have some guy wanting to buy some ISK, and they're going to deliver through any means necessary.
Yeah, so if you're on the sad graph, the red one, then you're probably going to be on or very likely have a good chance of being on this one as well, sadly.
And that's why we're considering things like forcing two-factor on accounts that have been hacked in the past, or accounts that purchase ISK, or there's some things we're looking into. This graph here is showing Tor usage over time, the anonymity network, which we're big fans of. We're all very much pro-privacy here at CCP, so we don't block it or anything like that. We think Tor is fine. A couple of interesting things here. In June, there was, of course, the surveillance scandal, and we've seen some increase in Tor usage since that time. Very nice.
Don't want to be connecting with that to account management or buying.
By all means, route the
whatever.
game traffic through Tor. It's totally fine, but it's ill-advised to log in through account management, purchase Plex through Tor, because of the some of the IPs might be tagged in our systems, were used for credit card in the past or hacking, and then accounts might be shut down as a precaution, and you'll have to verify the ownership before we open it up again. And this is just to sort of protect your accounts from theft.
Yes, payment fraud also related to RMT, because you presumably gave them your credit card number and end up on this graph, which is also horrible. The one operation is responsible for a lot of this. It's the yellow guys over there.
Special friends.
Special friends. Even if it's one operation, they appear to sell to a lot of the websites, so you never know where they're going to pop up.
That's why it's so risky. You have no way of protecting yourself. You don't know where the ISK that you're buying comes from, and
if you get it from this, you're going to have an added risk of getting permanently banned, because we want to squeeze people a little bit for data and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Especially if it came from stolen credit cards. That's when you'll, even though we have the 2-strike, you might expect a 7-day temporary ban on first offense. If it came from credit card fraud, we'll have to figure that out, and then you could be looking at a month of downtime while we talk.
Even if we can't name and shame the people involved in breaking the rules, we can show you where they live, like last year.
Yeah.
So we have this again. The beautiful Eve world, and these are the mining bots from last year. The change is not very significant, maybe in the drone regions.
And that's probably related to the jump range changes. You know, the bots are recluses. They don't want you to see them or report them.
But if you want to go kill them, you probably want to find them there.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And please report them afterwards. So. For combat bots, which are mission running bots and just ratting bots generally, this is last year, and the new year is hardly any change. A little change up there as well in the drone regions.
It's going to go back and forth a few times. Hopefully everybody on Twitch can see this all right. And hello interwebs. ISK buyers by region.
All over the place, basically.
Same as last year, more or less. Jita is the place, you know. We're going to have some tips for you guys on how to spot this kind of behavior in-game later on. So that could be an interesting metagaming concept for people to partake in.
So that's it for us for now. We'll be back in a little bit.
Something secret.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. So now, as you can see, the secret part is finally here. In that secret part, we will maybe talk with somebody and have somebody on stage who is writing a blog, who is also very much into the war on RMT, who likes classes for some reason. And that is Nosy Gamer. Please welcome on stage Nosy Gamer as a guest speaker this year.
And it's, okay.
So when you click next.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I've been writing about CCP's war on RMT and on botting since 2011. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about their battle against black market ISK sellers. There we go. Now, basically their strategy is pretty simple, and that's to make the lives of the ISK sellers as miserable and as unprofitable as possible. And I describe this as a top-down, bottom-up, and get-them-out approach. Now, the main weapon that CCP uses in doing this is the use of Plex. By using Plex, CCP is competing directly with black marketeers. So the black marketeers not only have to compete with each other, they have to undercut CCP by a significant amount. And that amount I call the hazard discount, because it's risk versus reward. And the more risk there is, the more of a reward the ISK buyer is actually going to want. And I took a look at the price of ISK in Jita, and I compared it to the price of ISK at a major black market ISK selling site. It also handles other games like WoW, Guild Wars 2, Star Wars or Old Republic, but who cares about those games? We're talking about EVE. Now, in February of 2014, in Jita, the average price of 1 billion ISK, when converted to real-world money, was $11.05 greater than the price if you went to the ISK site. In 2015, 1 year later, the price of ISK in Jita went down $5.96 in US currency per billion ISK. At the black market ISK site, it went down $5.95 over the same period of time. That's top down. That's a direct correlation between the price of ISK and the price of legally obtained ISK in JITA versus the black market stuff that you get at some dodgy place. But now I should add one thing. It's not an $11 range always. It tends, up until the end of 2014, the price difference for the hazard discount was between 10 and 12 US dollars per billion ISK. Now, Plex isn't the only weapon that CCP has. They can also influence the price with their policies. At the end of 2014, CCP announced that they were going to more strictly enforce their EULA, which also includes increasing the penalties for buying ISK. They've gone from a 4-strike process down to a 2-strike process, with the first offense getting a 7-day ban on every account that you own if you get caught. And if you take a look at the graphs right there, you'll see the blue one, that's JITA, it's going up, but the price on the black market was still going down. That's the hazard discount opening up because there's more risk of buying ISK, and so therefore people want more reward. Now, that's the top down. That's putting a cap on the amount of money that the black marketeers can charge. Bottom up is making the black marketeers have to pay as much as possible in order to conduct day-to-day operations. And of course, the most obvious way of doing so is to go after bots. And that's what CCP's done, and they've done it fairly effectively. Basically, you've got this botter, and after he's lost 10 or 20 accounts because CCP keeps banning his bots, he posted some rules, and basically the rules are just like EVE rules. Don't bot with what you can't afford to lose. Now, he's got his little statement, and there's a couple things that were kind of important in this statement. The first one is he said that bot was currently down, and that's a direct result of the increased cadence to a 6-week release cycle by CCP. The more times that you release new versions of EVE, the more that the bot developers have to spend, the more time they have to spend in order to fix their bots. Sometimes you get a release and they get the bot fixed in an hour. Sometimes it takes a week. And when they're not, and if they have to wait a week for full functionality of their bot to come back, that's money out of their pockets. So, botting also has a bad reputation among the ISK sellers themselves. The black marketeers don't want you to think that they're botting or involved with bots in any way. Basically, here's some statements that they were saying, and basically they all come up and they say, "We're not botting. We're farming. We're not botters. We're farmers." Of course, except for the last guy, who not only says he's a farmer, but he also says that he follows all of CCP's rules. He doesn't break any of the rules, except apparently for selling ISK. Now, that's top down, bottom up, but do any of these RMT shops ever really close down and get out? And the answer to that is, yeah, I've seen it happen. The best example that I've come up with happened, and it began in August of 2013. CCP they started up an anti-bot measure. They came up with something new, and they were, in addition to banning the actual active bots, they were banning backup accounts. The backup accounts are very important to the botters, because if you get the active accounts banned, then you just bring up your backup farm and keep botting. CCP managed to get the backup farms too. So that resulted in all these ISK buyers, all these shops, and there were 14 of them listed on this chart. It's compiled from 14 of them. And there were too many sites fighting over too little ISK, and the price went through the roof. Not only did it go into the hazard discount, it also broke through the price cap that the Plex that Plex imposes. So there was the ridiculous situation where it was actually cheaper to go to CCP to buy ISK than it was to 11 of these 14 black market sites. And what can't happen, what can't go on forever, it doesn't. And by the end of September, two of the major sites went out of business, or they stopped selling ISK. At the end of October, an EVE-specific site went out of business, and the price went ahead and it fell back down. There's one important thing, though. By the middle of November, the hazard discount was only $5. People don't buy at $5. They buy at 10 to 12. So most of these shops had lost a lot of business from EVE players. And by August of 2014, I stopped following these sites because there weren't enough that were actually selling ISK in order for me to actually get good data. But don't believe me, this guy here in December was all over the internet. What he wanted to do was he wanted to sell ISK. And he wasn't happy with the sites. So he asked the question, does anyone know any good European or American shops which actively trade in EVE Online and offer their suppliers some decent price, at least $7.50 US or €6 per billion? As far as I know, this guy never got an answer, and I watched for like a month and a half. So basically, a lot of the shops, they felt the top-down pressure from the cap. They felt the bottom-up pressure from the bans, and a lot of them just got out of the business of selling EVE Online ISK. And finally, I just want to say one thing, and that is there's still black marketeers out there trying to sell their ISK. They're still lying to you about how safe their stuff is. Don't be this guy right here. This guy, he goes to a site, and it says, oh, it's farmers. It's safe. It's not botters. It's farmers, so I'm safe. He goes, he buys 2 billion ISK. CCP, of course, gives him a 7-day vacation from EVE on all of his accounts, so he loses 7 days of training on all of his accounts. He also is out $22 US. And when he goes and complains about this, he's told, hey, it happens. Nobody can guarantee full safety. So don't be this guy. Don't buy dirty ISK. And enjoy flying around in New Eden. And thank you very much.
So the awareness problem we talked about is pretty big. First, we're going to bore you a little bit with some policy recap, just to...
Yeah, you love it.
Yeah.
We were actually trying to get custom-printed EULA toilet paper for the Fanfest, but that was really hard for some reason.
Super expensive for some reason.
It's not a joke, we were trying.
Maybe next year.
So just, we're going to go through this real quick. Policy recap, some more on RMT, and then awareness success story, and then at the end, some sub-changes we'll present.
So yeah, awareness. The policies, we have the 2-strike botting policy that we changed last year, and then the 2-strike ISK buying policy. Both of these have been tightened up a little bit. And you have the 7-day temporary ban and confiscation of the ISK, and then on the 2nd strike, a permanent ban.
And then, of course, we have some severe RMT, ISK selling and client modification. We have always had a zero-tolerance policy on that, and there's a lot of overlap between, for example, the 2-strike botting policy and the client modification one. Certain bots are just by definition client modification. It depends on how they achieve what it is that they're trying to do. So we have the intention of allowing players to go legit. And that is why we have the 2-strike policy. You get one chance and then do it again and you're out.
Yeah. For the macro use, we copied the all-important article from the EULA, very, very simple, and says it all really. So I guess that's it for the policy recap. Awareness, this is the biggest problem we have. New players don't know what the rules are, so they get caught up in RMT. We want to change that from this to this, or this, because this.
Let's talk a little bit about the success story here. I really love this graph, to be honest. I was not expecting it at all. I was sort of terrified of this. It wasn't a policy change, but it was an announcement that we now enforce the policies that we've always had in a different way. And I was worried that, players would try and circumvent the rules, which of course happened. And but this graph really shows you that, by and large, the awareness on this topic was huge. It was controversial, it was discussed by the players, and it shows. Most people here value their accounts, and they just stopped using the forbidden functions. And we're really happy to see that.
Yep, that's a beautiful thing. The awareness is still pretty strong. We get like tons and tons of reports about multiplexers or broadcasting suspects. Some of them are not necessarily accurate, but
yeah, this one here is pretty funny. This is this was reported as multiplexers, but in fact it was a clever ruse by the fleet. They were like pretending, so anything they can do to get a reaction out of you. The one that messed up the GF with the space in the middle there sort of gave it away. Try better next time.
Sneaky trolls.
It's not always what it seems, but thank you very much for the reports, and please keep them coming. It's very useful, even though I feel like half of them are false positives. It really helps, because even the false positive we can use. A legitimate player helps us build a profile of how human behavior in EVE Online looks, and that makes the bot stand out even more.
Yeah, we're still tuning all these detection thingies, so we can use all the data we can get, even if it's wrong data. We have some basic tips on how to spot RMT. It's pretty easy usually.
You might remember this guy from last year.
Yeah. For one thing, they look a little strange sometimes and talk a little funny.
Yeah, these are actual chat logs.
Yes.
From TQ, from a banned disk seller. Choice quotes.
Then there's the methods they use. A lot of them issue contracts with Plex or ISK or minerals or whatever items. Of course, we can see this in the logs, which are pretty good.
And there's some misconceptions here. New players are told, oh, you can buy Plex and sell it for ISK. That's absolutely correct, but you can buy it from authorized retailers or CCP. And we will never send you Plex via contract. We will never send you Plex via trades.
Not a can in space with good stuff in it. It's not safe. We can see that too. So we can find it and reverse everything, which is going to leave people in a negative, most likely, because they've already spent the ISK on something.
And since we showed you where these ISK buyers usually are on the heat map, look for this in JITA. Is there somebody boarding a ship? Is it a rookie ship? Is it filled with Plex? Blow it up. Then tell me about it.
Sorry?
Possibly, unless it blows up.
We'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
So again, like if you buy Plex from an authorized retailer, you're not going to obtain it by boarding a ship in space. Yeah. We're not going to invite you into a shady corporation and have you take it from a hangar or something along those lines. It's all going to come through the redeeming section of your account.
Yeah, the old logs don't show anything, is pretty old, and they actually show pretty much everything.
Certainly not the case anymore. Probably not. But you're doing a good deed, so.
Yeah, you're fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
So, but if people don't catch on and figure out what's going on, this is probably what's going to end up happening. And of course, we don't want that.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. So we're getting close to the end here.
Yeah, this one here I really like. I was on Twitter and trying to drum up some awareness, spread the good word, tweeting a little bit. This guy was having none of it. He said he doesn't care. He just wants sub changes, and we're of course happy to oblige. So what we're going to show you here is actual evidence footage that is from Tranquility. It's of me and Grimmi here blowing up player-owned structures in 0-0 or wormhole space, belonging to RMT operations. If you think they're only in high sec, you would be wrong. They're very much all over the place.
It's a little grainy and stuff, but it still
it was meant as evidence, but we hope that you enjoy nevertheless.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot for your time and your attention. I hope you have not seen any of your pauses in this movie. If not, maybe next year. So we will be over in Dodixie, which is just downstairs around the corner, in order to have the Q&A. So if you have any questions, if you want to discuss any other topics which we did not address yet in this presentation, please just drop by, have a talk with us, have a chat with us. And always feel free to drop us a line at security@ccpgames.com and internalaffairs@ccpgames.com. If you spotted anything you want to report, just go ahead and do it. Thanks a lot.